Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Today's episode is presented by Golf Dojo. Your space, your time, your game. Bring your game to Golf Dojo, Western New York's best indoor golf experience. Visit mygolfdojo.com. Big thank you to everyone out there, whether you're watching this, whether you're listening, following, subscribing. I appreciate y'all very much. We're going to take the Buffalo Bills and 31 other teams today, and we're going to break them down and put them into 7 different tiers. That's going to be the theme of today's episode. Not going to be a particular long one. Before we get going, a couple things. Let me just say this too, right off the bat. If you consume this podcast audio style, like if you listen on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, you're not going to know what the hell I'm even talking about. But if you watch this on the video side on YouTube regularly, more specifically, if you caught yesterday's episode, literally it looked 50 Shades of Grey creepish because I've done a lot of these episodes, but never before have I ever done one where I had the camera on, recorded, and quite literally forgot to put on the prime light basically right in front of my face. It was a weird looking video yesterday's show. I was pretty much in the dark. I'd like to have some contrast, like to have some of the blue pop in here a little bit in the background. I don't like a ton of color or a ton of light, I should say, but that was a little ridiculous. The lights are on this time, and hopefully they will be for now on the video side of these episodes. So we're like, man, we're into June already. Time's just flying. Training camp's coming really soon. Bills mandatory mini camp next week. And before you know it, we're going to be back here in July for camp. But right now, not a lot going on. So I like to have some of these kind of subjective, fun, maybe ranking style type episodes. And I love getting feedback from all you watching and listening. So when we do these tiers, by all means, please comment. If you're watching this again on YouTube, leave a comment. Tweet at me at Patrick Moran TV. Let me know what you think about this list when I get to it here in just a second. Typically, what I like to do on my Thursday episodes is have my guy Tone Pucks with me. Unfortunately, scheduling has just been an issue between the two of us over the last couple of weeks. You know, it can be hard sometimes to get together. Tone lives in Kenmore. I'm out here. My studio's here in West Seneca. Pretty long ride, and things, you know, come up. He's coaching freshman baseball. You know that because if you watch the show on Thursdays, he's got a Canisius High School baseball hat or shirt on pretty much every week. But anyway, long story short, he's just been really busy. Scheduling hasn't worked out. Hopefully, that'll come to an end pretty soon, and we'll be able to figure out a way to get together because Tone, although he doesn't have like that social media following, like pretty much nobody knows who he is on Twitter. If you watch, you listen to the show, you know who Tone Pucks is. One of my favorite guests, somebody I've been friends with for 35 years. He brings a lot of takes, a lot of opinions to the show that you might not hear anywhere else. So anyway, hopefully I'll get him back soon. Got some good guests coming up over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be back at Imperial Pizza for at least a handful of shows. I know John Scott, new sports director at Channel 2. He'll be with me from Imperial sometime this month. My man Joe from Queens is actually going to be in town. I'm going to try to hook up with him there as well. So stay tuned, man. A lot of cool things coming up here on the podcast in the days and weeks ahead. Little bit of house cleaning too. Then I want to dive into this. I want to give some flowers out. And I'm not one of those guys who doesn't like to give credit to other content creators because I know in a way it's competition. And if you say it's not a competition, any content creator out there, then I think you're lying to yourself because if you're listening to this show right now, that's a minute, that's 5 minutes, that's a half hour. You're not listening to someone else's show. So it's always going to be competition. But that said, I don't like to treat it as such. And I just want to give some flowers, some respect to my guy from Cover One, Anthony Prohaska. You want to talk about an incredible get to have on your show? Boy, oh boy, did he ever pull it off. This Wednesday, Amina Khas from ESPN, one of the most recognizable and talented sports journalists out there, sports media personalities. Anthony had her on as a guest on his Disguised Coverage show, part of the Cover One network. And man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm jealous. That is an unbelievable get. So I just want to make sure that I give Anthony Prohaska some props. Cover One, Bills fans, Cover One. They do a great job. When you think of Cover One, you're always thinking of Greg Thompson, of course, Eric Turner, my man Aaron Quinn, and those guys are really great. But sometimes somebody like Anthony Prohaska can get a little bit overshadowed in that mix. No fault of anybody else. It's just, the way it goes. But I'll tell you what, man, for my money, and I've had Anthony on the show. He just was on, we did a mock draft before the NFL draft in early April. Anyway, I think when it comes to football knowledge, the ability to articulate what he's thinking about football, the film breakdowns, the analytical stuff, all the little details that go into knowing a lot about the sport and being able to talk about it to people who are watching or listening. Anthony Prohaska truly is one of the best out there. And to see him be able to go out and get somebody like Amina Khas to go on his show, that says an awful lot about him. So as a friend, I'm really proud of him. I'm really excited for him. And to me, again, competition, not competition, whatever way you want to look at it, it's a victory for football fans. It's a victory for Bills fans to be able to listen, regardless of who it is that's the host, to get somebody like a Amina Khas on your show. I like to raise people up, man, on as long as they deserve it. Like Joe Marino's my guy. He's my everyday listen. When he comes to Buffalo, Rochester for camp, I can't wait to get him on for a live show like we did last year. My guy, Joe Miller, they started the Overreaction Sports Network after all that bullshit went down with the Buffalo Rumblings podcasting stuff. Anyway, him, John Fina, Jerry Ostrowski, they're doing really good things already too. They get a different media guest on. They're doing multiple shows a week. They get a media journalist on every week for one of their shows. They're on the beat show, just doing great work. So I just want to make sure that I recognize that. All right, so on to some football stuff. Actually, one football topic, then I want to get into these tiers. This regards to Buffalo Bills and the AFC East. I didn't notice it, though. Maybe it's been the same for a while. But any odds that I've looked at, any betting odds, FanDuel, what's the other one? DraftKings, a couple of Vegas sites that I've looked at, the Buffalo Bills, and I've looked at it more as a big picture, win the AFC or Super Bowl odds. But everything that I've looked at has indicated that the Buffalo Bills have been the favorite to win the AFC. And the AFC East, I'm sorry. That came to an end, at least from what I've seen, on Wednesday, because Caesars Sportsbook in Vegas, I saw this on Twitter. If you're watching on the video side, I got up a graphic right now. They put out their AFC East betting odds. And again, for the first time from what I know, the Buffalo Bills are not the sole favorites right now to win the AFC East. According to Caesars, the Bills and the New York Jets are both at 180 to 100, plus 180 to win the AFC East. And then Miami is quite literally right behind them at plus 190. New England, not really in the mix. They're at 2,800, plus 2,800. It caught me a little bit by surprise. Again, I know nationally, and we listen and watch all the time. A lot of the national media people have been down on the Bills. If you want to go extreme, like Emmanuel Acho did this past week, the Super Bowl window, according to him, is not only closer to the Bills, but it's also drywalled. And then there's bars over the drywall. Just an absolutely ridiculous statement that he made for attention, of course, last week. But anyway, even if you're not going to be outlandish like that, a lot of people think this is going to be a down year for the Bills and that Miami or the Jets could win the division. And I don't disagree with that, so we're clear. But I was a little bit surprised to see not a heavy favorite, but that the Bills are no longer the favorite to win the division. They're right there with the Jets. We don't have to deep dive into why I think the Bills should be favored in the AFC East right now, because we do that pretty much every day. If you listen to the show, you watch the show all the time, we talk about the Bills quite literally every day. So we already know what we feel about them. But the other teams right now, Miami and the Jets, I'm a little surprised. I'm not going to lie. And I get it. Again, the Bills feel ripe to most, for sure. There's no denying that. But I look at the New York Jets and I see a lot of question marks. There's a lot of what ifs right now when it comes to the New York Jets. And that's not to say that they don't have an incredibly talented roster, because they certainly do. Some studly players. Garrett Wilson is a stud. Breece Hall is a stud. Quentin Williams is a stud. Sauce Gardner, stud. Plenty of studs on their football team. But they also got a lot of questions and a lot of depending on some older players with some significant injury history and issues currently. You're full. If you're not worried about, if you're a Jets fan and you're not extremely worried about Aaron Rodgers, how that Achilles is he going to hold up? He's 40 something years old, complete douchebag of a human being. That's besides the point. What does he have left? What does he have left? I get it. It's May. These are just OTAs and we're seeing clips. But if I'm a Jets fan and I'm watching him, I'm not loving the way his footwork looks. And we've seen a lot of videos and a lot of maybe breaking it down too much, what he's looking like right now in a t-shirt and shorts. But I got concerns if I'm a Jets fan about Aaron Rodgers. And just like the Bills with Josh, or I'm sure Miami with Tua, he goes down, that ship goes down. Just like that, it's over. Just like it would with the Bills if Josh Allen goes down. But Aaron Rodgers got hurt last year. He's old. And Achilles ain't no joke. So I'm really, really concerned about Aaron Rodgers. I'm also concerned about both starting tackles as of right now to be able to keep them upright too. Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, pretty good tackles, especially Smith. But he's old. He's been hurt. Question marks with the Jets. Mike Williams, a big wide receiver acquisition. Mike Williams is a really good receiver, especially when he's actually on the football field. But is he going to stay on the football field? He's coming off a significant major injury. They had a big trade. Now, this isn't about age or injuries, but they traded for Hassan Reddick, who so far has not shown up to OTAs, which who gives a shit about that? That's no big deal. But I thought it was a little peculiar to see reports this week that he hasn't even communicated with the Jets head coach. That seems pretty weird for a guy that you traded for. We're into May, and your head coach isn't even talking to him. So, if you want to say the Bills are ripe for the picking, sure, but I'm not sold on the Jets either. And then with Miami, I kind of feel like we know what the story is with Miami. If you're not a good opponent, they are going to smoke you. They will stomp on you. They will stomp on your grave. They will embarrass you. Hell, they might put up 70 on you if you suck. They're going to be good early on. But is Miami going to be great when it matters? I don't think so. I don't believe in the quarterback. They got some holes throughout that football team. They got some key defensive players who are trying to come back from injury. A lot of question marks with Miami. And I'll tell you what, too. If the Bills, who are battle-tested, if nothing else, the Bills and their quarterback, their head coach, they're battle-tested. When it gets down towards the end of the season, if the Bills are right there with Miami, to me, huge advantage, Buffalo. Huge. Look at the Miami schedule. And again, I consider the Dolphins, to me, they're a team that seems to start well. They will run over shitty teams, and then it gets a little colder, and the season wears on, and they seem to wear out. We've seen it the last couple of years. Injuries, just not playing good football late in the season. And I'll tell you what, if the Bills in Miami are close to each other and they get down to that last 4 to 6 weeks of the season, again, huge advantage Buffalo. Here's part of the reason why. Look at the schedule. Miami's last month of the season, their last 4 games at Houston, at home against the San Francisco 49ers, at Cleveland, at the New York Jets. 3 of their 4 last games on the road, all quality opponents. Their one home game against San Francisco, which, I mean, it's hard to project this in May, of course, but it's hard to imagine San Francisco not being favored to win that game, even on the road. That is a killer stretch for Miami. Buffalo's got a couple really tough stretches in their schedule as well. Those like that week 3 through 6, about 2/3 through the season when they played Frisco on that run, the Rams on the road too. So the Bills got a couple tough stretches. But man, oh man, you got the Bills, you got New England twice, you got and the Jets at home, sandwiched in between that for the end of your season. Right, again, Miami at Houston, Frisco at Cleveland, at the New York Jets. Want to go 2 weeks further than that too. They play at Green Bay and they're at home against the Jets. So those last 6 games could be killer for Miami, a team that starts out well and seems to fade out. So on that note, like I said, I get it. The Bills, maybe I'm not saying the Bills should be like, minus 3 to 1 or something like that, but plus 180, dead even with the Jets and right there with Miami. I'm not going to lie. That kind of caught me by surprise, at least a little bit. So here's what I wanted you to know. And we'll get this started, then we'll take a break and come back and we'll really dive into it. But I took the Bills in all 31 other teams, and I put them into 7 different tiers. Kind of like what I did with chicken wings here not too long ago. I think there were 7 tiers for them as well, going from like that worst tier to the first tier. I prefer tiers over rankings. I know some people like to look at NFL power rankings. That's kind of what this is in a way. Of course, power rankings, take them with a grain of salt, obviously. But to me, I don't like using power rankings. I like using tiers because there's usually a handful of teams to me that are like interchangeable. They belong like together. Where if you power rank a team, let's just say, for an example, the Bills and the Jets are dead even right now in the AFC East odds. But you have Buffalo, there's 8 teams in that group. And you got Buffalo at the top of that group and Miami or the Jets at the bottom of it. So now you got the Bills ranked 15th in your power rankings and the Jets are only 23rd. That seems like a big discrepancy, doesn't it? But when you have tiers and you put them both in the same tiers, they're interchangeable. So that's why I like grouping teams better more than individually ranking them from 1 all the way down to 32. The 7 tiers that I have, and we'll start with the worst ones. First pick candidates for 2025. Those are teams that I feel like ain't got a prayer in the world, and they're more likely to be drafting first next year than they are to compete for a Super Bowl. There's 5 of those in my tier. The next one is my meaning I don't think they're the worst of the worst, but I really don't think that they have a realistic chance of competing for any kind of championship this season. Then I got another tier is could surprise. That's the category. I got 5 teams right there. Those are 5 teams, that's pretty self-explanatory that I think may be better than a lot of people are going to give them credit for. Then I got true playoff contenders. And that's actually, when I pull up the graphic here in a minute, maybe a little bit misleading. Because what I mean by that is I don't necessarily think that they're contenders to win in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. But I think that they are teams that are going to be right in the mix late in the season, playing to get into the playoffs. Then I got 3 teams that are near locks to make the playoffs. Like, I don't think these are Super Bowl teams, but I think short of an absolute collapse or having seasons that are marred by injury, that those are going to be teams that make the playoffs. Then my second from the top tier are my legitimate Super Bowl contenders. These are 5 teams that I feel have every opportunity, every chance to not only make the playoffs, but to get to and win a Super Bowl. 5 of those teams I got. And then my top tier category is going to be Super Bowl favorites. Those are going to be 3 teams that I think are and should be favored to not just get to the Super Bowl, but to actually win it. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a real quick break. I'm going to come back after that, and then we're going to get to these tiers, and I'll start with the bottom, and then we'll work our way right back up. All right, I am back here, and we are tearing the Buffalo Bills and all 32 NFL teams into a group of 7, from least likely to compete for a Super Bowl this year to most likely. Again, some cases, not really a lot of explanation needed. If you happen to be watching this on the video side, which, by the way, if you are, you might see me being a little bit herky-jerky here. I got like 8 different buttons and stuff here that I'm trying to control. Ain't no producer here in the Talking Buffalo studios. It's all me by myself. But anyway, like I said, on the video side, I'll pull up the graphic. On the audio side, of course, I will provide as much detail as possible. Let me pull up the list. This is the entire list, actually. And we'll start from, like I said, the bottom, and we'll work our way back to the top. And the bottom category, the bottom tier, is going to be teams that I feel are most likely to compete for the number 1 pick in next year's draft. That means I think that these are the bottom 5 teams right now in the NFL. Got 5 of them. I'll start. And these aren't, again, once they're in a tier, they're not necessarily in a specific order. But I got Arizona, Carolina, the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Washington Commanders. They're in my number 1 for next year pick grouping. 2 of those teams, New England and Washington, have brand new rookie quarterbacks, literally 2 of the first 3 picks of the draft. Washington, of course, Jaden Daniels. New England, Drake May, who may not start the season with the Patriots. That might be Brissett for a while until Jared Mayo feels like he's ready. But anyway, those are 2 teams with a lot of roster turnover, some talent, some new coaches as well with both those teams. I don't see them doing much this year. The Raiders, I'm still stunned. They go and give $1 gazillion to Christian Wilkins in free agency, and Gardner Minshew is going to be their week 1 starting quarterback. Couldn't believe they didn't swing a trade, sign a free agent quarterback, draft one. Stunning to me. I don't see much coming from the Raiders this year. Carolina, again, some pretty good young players, much like Washington and New England. A young quarterback, Bryce Young, just going into year 2. So, of these 5 teams here on my bottom tier, 3 of them ain't going to be looking for a quarterback, even if they were to land the number 1 pick in next year's draft. Carolina, New England, Washington. Raiders, absolutely. And then Arizona. I don't know, man. A little bit of an enigma, like when it comes to the quarterback position. Like if the Arizona Cardinals stink this year, and I think they're going to, and Kyler Murray's just all right, are you looking to get rid of that contract? Are you looking to move on from him? Are you willing to eat money? Are you willing to start over? They got some good young players. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm looking forward to seeing him play this year, of course. I mean, there's players worth watching on Arizona. I just don't see them as being anything more than a bottom feeder team right now in the league. I'll say this, though, and this is important, too. Let's not forget, 12 months ago, if we were doing this right now, 12 months ago, I just said the Carolina Panthers are in the bottom tier, okay? 12 months ago, the Houston Texans were, I think, a 2-15 team or a 3-14 team, whatever the hell they were 2 years ago, 2nd pick in the draft, 2nd from the bottom in the league. They draft a quarterback, and look where they are, just literally 1 year later. It is absolutely crazy to me. So, again, any team, I don't care who you are, in this league, in the NFL, things can change in just 1 year. But I don't see it for any of these 5 teams. Next tier is just simply my nah. I mean, these teams, I'm not going to go as far to say they suck, but I don't see any short-term path for them being anything more than a team that maybe at best could hover around 500. Like that would be their ceiling. These teams are like the 8 to 9 win season ceiling for me. And anyway, in that list, I got Denver, got the Chargers, got the New Orleans Saints, got the New York Giants, and I got the Seattle Seahawks. Again, I'm not going to sit here and break down every team in full detail here. Denver's got a lot of holes. They got a rookie quarterback. Chargers got a good quarterback, but they seem to take away all of his wide receivers. Jim Harbaugh, brand new coach. That is a team that is essentially starting over. Don't love the Saints. Don't love Derek Carr. I think they're a team that's kind of hovering around mediocrity. The New York Giants. I mean, I love Malik Neighbors. God, do I like Malik Neighbors. I would have loved to seen him in Buffalo. But, man, they go with Daniel Jones another year. They had an opportunity to get McCarthy, Penix, maybe even Nix, and they went receiver, so they're sticking with their quarterback. I think that's a mistake. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to lead that team to anything. Who knows what happens with Brian Dable, too, after this year if the Giants have another shitty year like they did last year. And then Seattle's just a team that, for whatever reason, I'm just not sold on them. Again, they got some good parts. Every team in the NFL at this point has good parts, but I'm just not sold on Seattle. So I got them in my nah category. Then the next one is could surprise. And I got 5 teams here. I got the Atlanta Falcons. I got the Chicago Bears. I got the Indianapolis Colts. Got the Minnesota Vikings. And I got the Tennessee Titans. Kind of going order here. Atlanta's got a lot of good weapons. They had a pretty good defense last year. Look, Atlanta would have probably been a playoff team last year if their quarterbacking wasn't atrocious. Desmond Ridder was awful. Kirk Cousins, not awful. Not great enough that they didn't want Michael Penix too, which, God, that's still, what is that, a month and a half almost later? I'm still stunned that Atlanta did that with the 8th overall pick. Really, really weird. But anyway, Atlanta's got playmakers. They got an elite running back. They got a great tight end. They got a great receiver. They got a decent defense. They're in a pretty weak division. I could see them with better quarterbacking play being right there in the mix to win that division. Chicago Bears, worst team in the NFL last year, but you got your quarterback. You're starting over. You got Caleb Williams. You got Roma Dunze as well. They were active in free agency. I'm not going to go and say that the Chicago Bears are going to be the 2024 version of the Houston Texans, but they're a lot more talented than they were a year ago. Probably a lot more hungrier than they were a year ago, a lot more stable than they were a year ago. You know, it's tough to, be a good football team when your quarterback doesn't know his future, like last year with Justin Fields. So yeah, Chicago could be a team that is better than most people think. I like the Colts. I liked them last year. Anthony Richardson going into year 2. Good quarterback. They picked up some good pieces. I think the Colts could be in the mix in the AFC South. The Minnesota Vikings, I mean, it's going to be about the quarterback. If J.J. McCarthy is good as a rookie, they're going to be a lot better than people think. Because minus quarterback, they got a lot of weapons, of course, led by Justin Jefferson. They got Aaron Jones signed with them. They got a lot of talent. Minnesota's a good football team. They kind of feel to me, though, like last year's Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons, good football team, shit quarterbacking. Is J.J. McCarthy going to be good as a rookie? It's a big ask. It's a big ask for a rookie to come in, start, and be good. But if he is, Minnesota could be there. In Tennessee, I'll tell you what, I've seen other early power rankings and stuff where Tennessee's kind of near the bottom, and I don't get it. Now, I know winning the offseason don't mean shit. I remember Rex Ryan, of course, declared the Buffalo Bills offseason winners, and we saw what the hell happened with that. But man, the Tennessee Titans have added some legit talent to that offense. Legit. Tony Pollard. They already had Hopkins. They got some good football players this offseason. I got them almost drawing a blank. I mean, they lose Derrick Henry, of course. Oh, it's going to come to me. Leave a comment because I don't have my notes in front of me. I don't have any notes, actually. Just kind of winging this one. I know they got a really good receiver, too. And it's not Tyler Boyd, but he's also somebody that they got. Anyway, the Tennessee Titans got a lot of talent. They are putting Will Levis in a position to succeed. I think they're a team that could surpass expectations this season. All right, so we're like in the middle now. Those were the bottom three, and we still got 4 to go. So the ones in the middle, these are like playoff top contenders. And what I mean by that is I don't think these teams are locked or necessarily even near locked to make the playoffs, but they're absolutely contenders to, at a minimum, make the playoffs. Maybe the ceiling with these teams is to get to the playoffs and maybe win a game, do a little bit of damage, but I don't think they're quite Super Bowl contenders. In that list, I got the Cleveland Browns, Jacksonville Jaguars, LA Rams, New York Jets, Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In terms of the Browns, they're a good team last year, and that was incredible what Joe Flacco did. Man, good story. Hopefully they get Nick Chubb back, but if they do, they got a good running back, got great receiver, the Amari Cooper, good offensive line. Of course, they play really good defense. Question mark with Deshaun Watson. I don't know how that shit plays out. Kevin Stefanski is a really, really good coach. I absolutely see Cleveland very, very much in the mix for a playoff spot and possibly even winning the AFC North. Jacksonville Jaguars, a collapse last year. I thought they were an absolute lock to win the AFC South to make the playoffs, and they just utterly fell apart. You start to question at this point Trevor Lawrence. The reason why I don't have Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville's got a really talented roster, but I got some question marks about Trevor Lawrence. Is he that guy who's destined to be just another guy? Somebody who's maybe not average, maybe he's a little above average, but he's certainly not going to crack any top 7 or 8 quarterback in your league list. You're only going to go as far as your quarterback's going to take you when you got that type of team. And I got question marks about him and some other areas of the football team as well. Rams are a tough team for sure. Losing Aaron Donald doesn't help their fortunes. Matt Stafford's still a really good quarterback. The Rams are going to be in the mix. We've already talked about the Jets. Ultra talented team on paper, but they need a lot of things to go right. They need their quarterback to stay healthy and to play very well. You know, Aaron Rodgers, even if he plays all 17 games, if he's just average, if he's Aaron Rodgers the last year that we saw in Green Bay 2 years ago, Jets ain't going nowhere. Not in this conference, they're not. But they got potential. You know, like I said, they can contend. Pittsburgh Steelers, they're throwing them in the middle of the pack every damn season. I don't care if it's Russell Wilson. I don't care if it's Justin Fields. I don't care if it's Brock Horde. I don't care if it's Cordell Stewart. Doesn't even matter. Pittsburgh is always going to be in the mix when Mike Tomlin or Bill Cowher or Chuck Noll is your head coach. Bottom line, Pittsburgh is in the mix forever. And then Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, they made the playoffs last year, and they brought everybody back. They didn't even try to get outside people. Their only purpose was to bring everybody back, it seems, from last year. They got Baker Mayfield back, thought they were going to lose him. Got Mike Evans back, thought they might lose him. I believe Levante David they got back. A lot of their good players. They just gave Winfield a gazillion-dollar extension, which he deserves. So Tampa Bay is loaded and ready for another run to make the playoffs. All right, third tier. These are teams that, to me, are near playoff locks. Teams that maybe other people might say are overrated. Maybe that's the terminology I should have used for this category. Overrated. Because these are 3 good teams, 3 well-known teams. Three teams that should and probably will make the playoffs, but I wouldn't bet the mortgage on them. Let's just put it that way. Those three teams, Baltimore Ravens, Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins. We'll start with Miami. Again, we've already talked about them. It is critical. If I'm a Miami fan, you better come out running and gunning, and off to a good start. Running roughshod over shitty teams when you can. Because if things go the way they've went the last couple of years, combined with what their schedule is looking like the back half of this year, that is a team that a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, are picking to win the AFC East that might not even make the playoffs. So they better be careful. Baltimore Ravens, look, I didn't think they were that good last year. I'm going to be honest with you. I think they just got a season where things fell their way. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense struggled a lot. Joe Burrow went down. That was huge for Baltimore to win that division, ultimately get the top seed. But again, they fell on their face at home in the playoffs. They're a good team. And Lamar Jackson's won 2 MVPs. You can't take that away from him. Lamar Jackson has to be in the top 5 at worst of any quarterbacking list that you put out there these days because he's won 2 MVPs in 5 years. But I don't love the receivers. I'm not even sure who the hell the running back is. That goes from week to week. They always are going to have a good defense. This is the Baltimore Ravens we're talking about. Good head coach. Pretty good regular season team. Like I said, a near lock to make the playoffs. But in a division where I've already talked about Cleveland, we're going to talk about Cincy, obviously, or spoiler alert, in just a second. And a lock they're going to win their division. If they don't win their division, it's not necessarily a lock that they make the playoffs. And then the last team's the Dallas Cowboys. This to me is just an overrated team. I can't believe, maybe the biggest surprise to me since the playoffs last year to right now is watching Green Bay walk into Dallas, their stadium, their field, their fans, and beat the ever-living shit out of them, embarrassing them in the playoffs, and they didn't fire their head coach. Mike McCarthy is still that coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Stunning. They didn't really do anything in the offseason. Draft-wise, we'll see. But CeeDee Lamb wants to get paid. He ain't paid as of this recording. Dak Prescott makes $1 million or gazillion dollars. $1 million ain't shit in today's NFL. He's one of the highest paid. He's going to get paid again. I don't think he's worth it. Dallas has got some holes. Micah Parsons is he's amazing. But there's a lot of holes on the Cowboys. I think they're going to make the playoffs because they're in my third tier here. They're a good paper team, but I just don't believe in the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't. All right, so we're down now to our top 2 tiers. The first one is legitimate Super Bowl candidates. These are teams that don't need to have all kinds of crazy shit happen for them to be square in the mix to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. These are teams that I feel if they could stay relatively major catastrophe injury free, if they play to the best of their abilities, these are all teams that I could very much see played in the Super Bowl this year. And I got 5 teams: the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans, the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's start with the fact that 3 of these teams, Detroit, Houston, and Green Bay, kind of sucked just 2 years ago. Well, Detroit didn't suck. They kind of came close to making the playoffs. They lasted until like the second last week of the season 2 years ago. But didn't they knock Aaron Rodgers out of the playoffs on the road then this season in 2022? They did. Anyway, you get my point. Holy shit. Detroit, Houston, Green Bay, 2 teams that have come an awful long way in a short amount of period of time. When it comes to the Houston Texans, again, 12 months ago, this team was drafting second, a rookie quarterback. And man, oh man, Do you think Carolina wishes they can go back and get CJ Stroud right now? But anyway, look at what they did. They came on like gangbusters, and before you know it, you blink your eye, and they won the AFC South. You blink your eye again, and they win a playoff game. They get to the AFC divisional round. They are an exciting, good football team. And because they got an elite quarterback who's pretty much already elite, even though he's only going into year 2, he's on a rookie contract. They're able to go out and do a lot of shit to improve their roster right now because they got that luxury of that quarterback on a rookie contract. Buffalo Bills fans, you know what that's like when Josh Allen used to be cheap back in the day. But you're able to go trade for Stephon Diggs. You're able to go get a Danielle Hunter. Those are things you could do because of your salary cap situation. So you got Stroud. You got Nico Collins. You got Tank Dell, who was a stud as a rookie. And now you got Stephon Diggs, too. You got Joe Mixon running the football. You know, I like Devin Singletary. He was good. But Joe Mixon's a straight-up upgrade. That offense is loaded. And they got Dalton Schultz. They re-signed him, too. That offense, on paper, is as good as any offense in the NFL right now. Straight up. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball, and they got some pieces there. Stingley's a really good corner. You got bookend defensive ends now. You got Will Anderson going into year 2, and you got Danielle Hunter. Houston absolutely deserves to be on this list, ranked really high. Detroit Lions should have went to the Super Bowl last year. They blew it. The NFC Championship game in Frisco. They had that game won. Josh Reynolds, a couple of huge drops, and, you know, a mistake, a fumble, couple bad decisions, couple bad plays, execution, I should say. Not necessarily bad decisions or plays, just bad execution. And Detroit easily could have been in the Super Bowl. They didn't get worse. So they're right there where they deserve to be. Jordan Love, what a revelation he became last year. There were a lot of question marks about Jordan Love. And now look at him 1 year later. What a good run he had. He heated up. Those receivers heated up. The defense played well. They went into Dallas. They smacked the living shit out of Dallas in the playoffs. And they very easily could have beat Frisco in the divisional round. So those 3 teams, to me, deserve to be in a list of now legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Some people might think Cincinnati shouldn't be this high. I couldn't agree less if that's your thought process, because to me, Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, and he's healthy. Hopefully he's healthy for Cincy fans, and he stays healthy, which is not a given because now he's had 2 significant injuries. But a Joe Burrow quarterback Cincinnati Bengals team is one of the best teams in the NFL. And you still got Chase. And for now, at least, you might not be happy, but T. Higgins is there. They drafted Burden from Alabama. I like that receiver a lot. Their offense is going to be really good. Their defense has been very good now for a couple of seasons. And they don't back down against these good teams. I mean, let's just keep shit kind of real here, folks. The Bengals have beaten the shit out of the Buffalo Bills the last 2 times they played them. And quite frankly, were it not for the tragedy that happened on the field with Damar Hamlin, they were well on their way to beating the shit out of the Bills that night as well. So they got the Bills number right now, at least anyway, they do. And they fight and play the Chiefs toe to toe. So they're right there. They're in the mix. And as long as Joe Burrow is healthy, you'd be a fool not to have him this high on your list. And then last is the Buffalo Bills. Again, with no deep dive discussion about the team, because you already know about the team, I'll just add this. Just like I said with Joe Burrow, I'm going to say the same thing with Josh Allen. The Bills aren't a team, and I mentioned Amina Khas earlier in the episode appearing with Anthony Nebraska on I Cover One show. She talked about it on the clip, and I agree with it fully. The Bills aren't really, it's not about schemes. You got a quarterback, it's about your quarterback being great. And Josh Allen is still, you know, God willing, he stays healthy, is going to be great. Whether he's throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis, whether he's throwing the football to Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Dalton Knox, Keon Coleman, MVS, Chase Claypool, for all we know, James Cook, whoever it may be. Josh Allen running the football with his legs. Josh Allen is going to make plays. Josh Allen is good enough to put a team on his back and win 10 to 13 games because he's the better quarterback on the field and he's going to play better and he's going to make the plays. And that's not even saying, or it goes without saying, I should say, the Bills' defense is still good. You know, there's a perception around the NFL media nationally that the Bills have lost a lot, that it's a down year. And a lot of the reason why people were saying that is because they traded Stephon Diggs and they let Gabe Davis walk and they cut Mitch Morse. You can make a case for me on the offensive side of the ball, although I just literally got done telling you Josh Allen is capable of carrying an offense to 10, 11, 12, even 13 wins in a season because he's Josh Allen. And that's just facts. But what I think the disconnect is, where I think the misperception is, where I think you're wrong, is people are saying because the Bills lost Micah Hyde, because the Bills lost Jordan Poyer, because the Bills lost Trey White, that this defense is not as good. And that's where I think you're wrong. I think the Bills defense is going to be as good and maybe better than it's been in recent years. I don't think the safety tandem of Taylor Rapp and Mike Edwards is even necessarily a downgrade from Hyde and Poyer. And I know some people are like, what? Especially national people. Look, this ain't 2021, 2022 no more. It's 2024. Edwards and Rapp are not great players, but they're fine. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, I don't know how much juice is left there. How much gas is even left in that tank? They're names. Names don't always mean you're great players. How many teams, how many sports do you know that you follow where you love a player, but you know he's at the end of the road? He's still on the team, but he's not the same player anymore. I think that's what the Bills had at safety at this point. Trey White, I love Trey White. But man, he's been hurt majorly 2 times in 3 years, and he's had 4 healthy games in 3 seasons. I mean, come on. Rasul Douglas is a really good corner. Christian Benford is on a come up. Christian Benford is starting to become one of the better young corners in the league. Matt Milano, again, lots of injury questions, just like with the Jets. But Matt Milano, a healthy Matt Milano week 1, combined with an ascending Terrell Bernard, that's an upgraded linebacker. Teron Johnson is still there. He's one of the best nickels in the NFL. He's literally an all-pro corner. Ed Oliver's still good. Von Miller is all the way back from an injury. Probably shouldn't have even played much, if at all, last year. He sucked. He was trash all season. But playoff time, he started showing glimpses. That Kansas City Chiefs game, he was not arguably, he was the best pass rusher that the Bills had that game. So now you get him back healthy, 100%. Greg Rizzo's still young. He's ascending. There's a lot of talent on the Bills defense. So people out there right now are writing the Bills off. I just think it's foolish between the Bills having a really good defense and an all-world level quarterback. Wow, I just got pretty fired up there on that rant. But the Bills absolutely deserve to be on this list. That's not me being a homer. That's me just keeping shit, as far as I'm concerned, 100% real. But they're not on my top tier. My top tier are the Super Bowl favorites. These are the 3 teams where if your life was at stake and you had to pick right now in early June, and by the way, I've said it's only May a couple times on this show. It's June, folks. But if your life depended right now in early June in properly and accurately predicting who is going to win the Super Bowl, and your life depends on it, your health depends on it, to me, it's 3 teams. It's Kansas City, it's Frisco, and it's Philly. Start with Philly. They're just too damn loaded to not be at the very top of this list. They made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They disappointed last year. Jalen Hurts was hurt, played hurt. They fell apart. But man, that team is loaded. There's just not a lot of weak spots. Other than losing Jason Kelce hurts them. But they are so good. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Come on. They don't get better that receiver 1-2. That's as good as anybody in the league. The offensive line's still really good. And that defense is just ferocious. And that secondary just literally had 2 day 1 starters in this draft just fall into their laps. That defensive line is monstrous. They're well coached. They got big game experience. They're battle tested. Philly needs to be at the top. Frisco, to me, is on paper the best team in the NFL. I thought that last year. Really surprised, still surprised now in June that they did not win the Super Bowl. Top to bottom. Brock Purdy might not be the greatest quarterback in the league, but he certainly fits that team and that system well. Best running back. Got Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. Good offensive line and defense for days. Best linebacker probably in the NFL. Keep going on and on. One of the best defensive lines in the NFL. San Francisco 49ers, to me, best team on paper. Got to have them there. And then last but not least, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, they're back-to-back Super Bowl champs now, folks. They've done it 2 years in a row, and they did it in a season where the offense kind of sucked. Let's just call it what it is. They didn't get shit from their wide receivers. Travis Kelce didn't do shit till counted, of course, and he steps up like he always does. But that team now is built primarily on defense. We don't talk about how good the Chiefs' defense is. We always talk about Patrick Mahomes being the best quarterback in the world, and he is. He definitely is. But it's that defense. They won that championship last year because of their defense. And they're still going to be really, really good. Even without the top corner, they're still going to be really good. Getting Chris Jones back for them was huge. And then they go out and they sign Hollywood Brown. They trade up with the Bills. They get Xavier Worthy. So now they got lightning speed for days. Not to mention Rashid Reese, and of course, Kelsey's still there. That offense is going to be really good. Kind of feels like last year was the year where if you're the Bills, you're the Bengals, you're the Ravens, you're the Texans. Last year felt like on paper that was your year to really knock them off, and nobody did it. Now, can they be knocked off? Still, absolutely, of course they can. But now I'm not sure on paper there's any team that's better than them. And right now on the field, there's certainly not any team that's better than them because they've won the last 2 Super Bowls. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. I like doing these. These are fun. I want to know what you think. What teams did I have too high? Did I have too low? Again, you can leave a comment in the on the YouTube section if you're watching this on video. If you're listening to this, you want to reach out, tweet at me at Patrick Moran TV, or you can email me, talkingbuffalopodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much, everybody, as always, for tuning in, for watching, for listening. I do appreciate you. Till next time, take care.